So let's talk to Okereke Celestine, who is the head of the initiative called the MSME Advocacy and Support Initiative. Is live from our Abuja studios. Good morning, and we thank you for holding out there in our studios there. Do you enjoy the studio? Do you like what we have there? Celestine?
Yeah, good morning, boss.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, nice morning. Yep.
Okay, and I was asking the question, do you like our studios in Abuja?
Yeah, I do like your studios. It looks very fine. It's good.
Thank you very much. I was just waiting for that acclamation. Thank you. Yeah, we got brand new facilities. For those of you who haven't seen it, you need to, if you live around Abuja or you're in Abuja from Lagos, just stepping into our multi-billion naira new edifice in Abuja. A very quiet area. You will love it. Thank you very much for that, Celestine. We appreciate that. Talk to us about what your initiative is doing as far as the MSME is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Let me give a background to what we are doing. 2013, I facilitated a training session for SMIDAN. And I discovered something. We had a situation whereby SMIDAN was training the same people every year, year in, year out. Same people, same business plan, same model, same consultants. Nothing was changing over a period of 3, 4, 5 years. And I joined the UWIN team as a mentor in 2011. And I discovered something. UWIN was put up as a model where they took the best business written plan. Best business written plan. There was no interviews, there were no questioning, there was nothing. Just go online, Google a business plan, submit it, you win your 10 million. No support services, no structures, nothing. And we wondered, why would you run UWIN on that model where people can go online, download business plans and just submit and they get 10 million? And you say you are supporting the MSME subsector of the economy. Then when CBN launched the 220 billion MSME funding in 2013, we asked to see the guideline. We got the guideline for the 220 billion MSME funding initiative. And something struck me and struck my guys that we work with. CBN was asking for people to bring 75% bank guarantee. 75% bank guarantee, meaning if you want to apply for 1 million naira, you need to bring a bank guarantee for 750,000 naira. And every businessman was like, why should I do that? Why should I take 750,000 to chase your 1 million when I can trade with 750,000 and make profit and possibly make $1 million in less than 6 months? So we looked at these issues and we tried to engage the government agencies that manage MSME funding in Nigeria.
Mr. Celestine, if I may cut in there, I'm sure that 75% bank guarantee that the central bank initially placed has since been reviewed drastically downwards. I'm sure in the last 2 years, that has since come down in partnership between the central bank and the Bank of Industry. So that threshold has since been reduced to allow for more MSMEs to get in on the game. But I want to understand a little bit more. You consider these some of the issues, but let's move on very quickly because of the time. What bothers you most about the challenges to MSMEs in Nigeria? Is it around the multiplicity of the agencies and the schemes? Is it about the inadequacy of funds, or the policies surrounding the MSMEs?
Now, what bothers us is this. We have several agencies that work for MSMEs that are not coordinated. They do not work in a coordination. They work at cross purposes. Secondly, they do not have a policy framework that says this is what we want to do for MSMEs. Now, we had a National Council on MSMEs at the last administration that was headed by a state governor, and we objected to it. A state governor cannot effectively manage the National Council on MSMEs. We do not have a problem of funding. We have several funding initiatives, 220 billion, 300 billion, 10 billion, 15 billion. But the question is improved access to finance. Improved access to finance. Now, you talked about the 50%, the 75% bank guarantee. It was reduced to 50% in 2015. They reduced it from 75% to 50%. But that is still a big challenge. You're asking me to go deposit 500,000 to enable me apply for 1 million. It's not going to work.
So what do
I'm not going to do that. Now, let me even draw your mind again. The 220 billion initiative has been revised twice.
Yes, so what would you consider as an acceptable
July
guarantee
2015
level?
and November 2015. But no, if we're talking of an acceptable guarantee level, we should look for other ways of seeking collateral from MSMEs. We should look for other ways of getting them to give us collateral. We can't continue asking them to deposit cash of any amount will not work. It won't work. The government has to sit down and say, we have failed in asking them to access funding based on this collateral model. What else can we do? What can we do? Because if you bring it down to 30%, it's still a challenge. You're asking me to deposit 300,000 to go take 1 million. I will look at it and say, no, it won't work. Because I still have to pay you interest on the 300,000 you are giving me. So what we are saying is government should have a stakeholders meeting where they bring in everybody who has interest in the MSME industry and say, how do we move forward? How do we go forward? I'll tell you something very important. When the first revision was done in July and the second one in November, there was no stakeholders consultation. Nobody was consulted, nobody was spoken to. We just saw the revision and it was made public. Now, you must have heard where they said with your BSc certificate, with your HND, you can go to banks and deposit as your collaterals and get loan in November. Now, the question is this. CBN is not going to accept those certificates as collateral from the microfinance bank or commercial banks. They won't. They are still going to ask the banks to bring financial guarantees, which are your bank guarantees, to access this money. Now, the banks are saying, we were not carried along. Why should I be the one collecting certificates as collateral? Why you as CBN are asking me for bank guarantee? Now, let me also say something. We have launched a 300 billion fund for non-oil export. Now, let me say something that the Nigerians need to know. There was no consultation before this fund was launched. There was no stakeholders meeting. Nobody was asked, how do we fund the non-oil export sector? Now, the fund has been moved to Nexim Bank. No guideline, nothing is guiding it. At the end of the day, we will have this 300 billion stay for 1 year, 2 years, and nobody is assessing it. Last year, we had 52 food items from Nigeria banned in the European Union. Have we addressed that issue? Have we addressed the issue of how we can have our food exports acceptably at the European Union? We've not addressed that issue.
Now I'm going to come in very quickly here, Mr. Celestine, on the issue of interface and stakeholders consultations. And I'm aware that over the last 4 years, the MSMEs come under largely the Ministry of Trade, Investments and Industry under the last administration that was. And there were a number of conferences and seminars and stakeholders meeting that were part of the MSMEs were part of. I met with a number of those who are medium and small enterprises who had come to this forum at one point or the other and have their say about how this would go on. What kind of stakeholders get together are you looking for?
Okay, now let me point something out. If you were going to amend the 220 billion guideline to say certificates are acceptable as collaterals, and the banks are not in agreement to that, that means the stakeholders have not been carried along. That is a clear example. You're asking that certificates should be acceptable by commercial banks as collaterals, and the banks are saying we can't do that. That means there was no stakeholder agreement before we did that. Now, we are launching the 300 billion non-oil export fund. There is no consultation with people who are into non-oil export to ask them, what do we need to do to be able to finance you? You've not asked them that question. We have 52 food items from Nigeria banned at the European Union. We've not addressed the issue of how can we get these things to be rebanned so that we can export them out. So now, when conferences can be held, meetings can be held, and I'll tell you something. At Ministry of Trade, Investment and Industries, they have a culture that I am not too in good terms with. When you want to hold conferences and you pick people who are friendly to your agency, people who are friendly to your ministry, people who are friendly to your organization, it doesn't work. Now you exclude those who are a bit critical, people who have spoken against your policies. It won't work. Sweden does not call meeting and invite those who they feel have been critical to their work. They don't do that. So conferences have been held, yes. Seminars have been held, yes. But who are the participants? Who attend them? Who makes input in them? Okay, I will also say something. We had a meeting with CBN sometime in 2015 on the 220 billion fund. And the question then was, how can microfinance institutions, how can financial cooperatives play in that 220 billion fund? Several opinions were made, several suggestions were made. And because they did not tally with what CBN had at the back of their mind, they did not consult with AMFIN again. They did not consult with those who had a critical opinion. And we told them, look, you will come back to amend the same guideline again. They said it won't happen. And it has happened. They've amended it in November. Okay, and even at that, they'll still have to amend it again in less than 6 months because they've not addressed the critical issues. So yes, conference.
If you permit me, sorry, we need to wrap this up. I have one minute and I have this question. How would you want President Buhari and his team to proceed on this matter, the MSMEs in Nigeria? In 1 minute.
Okay, let me say this. If we want to invest in the MSME subsector of the Nigerian economy, we should do something. We should do needs assessment. We should assess the needs of those who are in this sector. Let's do sectorial intervention. Let's invest sectorially. Let's have a fund that addresses those who are into oil palm. Have a fund that addresses those who are into footwear and the rest. I'll tell you something that struck my mind again too. The Nigerian budget for 2016 proposed budget has 1.2 billion for footwears and belts and the rest for Nigerian Army. 1.2 billion. Now, of that 1.2 billion, I will tell you, we're not even sure if the Aba industrial sector and other sectors where we produce footwears and the rest, we benefit from that. Because we have not tried to develop that sector. So the present administration should look at how to develop sectors. Let's not launch one fund that seeks to address every issue. It doesn't work.
Okay.
One fund can never address the entire issues. Let's have one fund that identifies the critical issues for people who are into oil palm, critical issues for those who are into footwear, issues for those who are into bakery and the rest. Let's begin to do needs assessment and say, okay, this is a challenge for those who are in this sector. And this is how we can meet the challenge. And they are the best persons who will tell you their challenges. You don't define their challenges for them.
I agree with you on that, Celestine. Okay, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your views and perspectives and insights into what happened in Nigeria's medium and small enterprises called the MSME space. We thank you for your time today, for coming through from our Abuja.